What's going on, guys? Running it back with another replay. Skulls indeed, Skulltaker. So anyways, we've got a showdown on the Changer's Madhouse here between me and Space Pope. Space Pope on Norsca, I'm on Khorne, who's super surprised. They're just my favorite faction. This was in a very interesting tourney format, a two-faction tournament, where you play your first faction on the odd rounds, second faction on all the evens. This was the third round, so Khorne was my first pick. I'm coming in here with some Forsaken, 3 of those guys, 2 Marauder Horsemen, lots of Marauders, who I think are very strong, just period. In almost every matchup you want to at least a couple. Here, you can usually stand to bring a few more. Skulltaker is my Lord choice, and some Chosen actually being brought up here. Lots of fire damage is kind of what I was going for here. Throwing Axes have it. You got the Chosen who have it. Forsaken have got it. And just going to be trying to take advantage of the fire weakness on a lot of these units, as well as, you know, there are a fair number of regenerating units that Norsca tends to bring. Ice Trolls, Skin Wolves being the most meta of them. And I definitely want to try and bully those a little bit with all this fire damage, because those can be very difficult to deal with, and if you don't kill them outright and remove lots of models on them, they just end up getting a ton of healing, and it ends up being just mad suffering for you. So the extra 20% damage output on Forsaken especially is just amazing. It is so nice to be able to just wail on all those regenerating units, man. So seeing my opponent's front line is kind of weak, actually. He's brought a lot of very expensive characters. Silas here, we've got a Shaman Sorcerer on foot. A little vulnerable, same with Wulfric. But the Chaos Frost Dragon and Syla are kind of the goon squad to try to keep those guys alive. It's a little too tough for me to dive in and just get on top of them right now. Some Marauder Champions moving up, but outside of that, it's just some Spearmen, the Icehorn Marauders, and a Marauder Great Weapon and another Spearman. Really not a lot of infantry to speak of. It's really the Horseman Corps and the single entities that my opponent is going to be trying to get the most value out of. So I use my Chosen here to screen a little bit. They've got silver shields and a ton of armor. It's not great for them to just sit there and get shot up, but it's better than nothing. Skulltaker pulling out of the fight here. A little bit risky for him. There was a lot trying to attack him, and he was taking some pretty significant damage. Hunter of Champions was also on him for a little bit there. But I am going to move back in now. I've got my Forsaken moving up. The Norscan Horsemen are going to be trying to take my back point there. Don't really have anything to answer that right now. I'm much more focused here in the middle, where my Minotaurs and my Marauders are just getting massive buffs from Skulltaker right now. 61 melee attack with the buffs from Skulltaker here, plus the extra leadership, which is just amazing. They put an absolute smackdown on Syla early. Syla's really struggling here. Horsemen finally get a good volley off on the Frost Dragon, which just eats like 700 HP worth of damage there in one fell swoop. Skulltaker actually fighting against Wulfric and the Sorcerer and Syla and the Chaos Frost Dragon. He's actually getting some good blows in on the Frost Dragon and keeping it nice and weak here. Getting some very, very good fights right now and just absolutely wailing on all of these characters. Skulltaker weakened a lot of these guys too. You can see that weakened effect just now wearing off on the dragon. Slayer's Sword is a very underrated ability. Just to slow it down for a second, talk about it. It buffs your weapon strength up on Skulltaker 50%, which gives him up to about 700 plus weapon strength, which is pretty insane, plus melee attack. And he's got 61 melee attack already as it stands, so he's honestly pretty good with the Slayer Sword at fighting SEs. Really can't underestimate him in that respect. Frontline fight, breaking down into just absolute chaos, but that's kind of what you want as Khorne. Skin Wolves are routing. Minotaurs are still hanging in. They've gotten 1,700 value, and they've only been on the field for about 2 minutes now. They've just been working everything down here. They've had so many targets to fight to. Really good performance from them. Chosen Accord moving over. All of the horsemen kind of moved off of that back point, and we do have a big fight between my horsemen and Space Popes. I do have another one moving out. They were going to capture the point, but seeing that my opponent committed to this fight, I'm going to just bring them over and get a fat rear charge on all of his horsemen now. Huge sandwich, crushing that entire position. Amazing stuff for my mobility core. Breaking most of his horsemen is really big for me. That is one of the big value trading elements of his build. Losing that is going to be incredibly miserable at this stage of the game. Seeing a little bit of an opportunity to push back here, or at least force some summons out from my opponent onto this rear point, I send the Spawn Summon and my Marauders over to fight these Marauder Great Weapons and the Marauder Spearmen here. Don't want to keep this spawn on the Spearmen, so I am going to be moving them off for just a moment. And trying to find a fight against these Skin Wolves. Skin Wolves, you know, very annoying unit. Kind of beating up on Skulltaker right now. He is pulling out of combat, and I'm going to be looking for an opportunity to try and get him back in. It's looking a little wild on the middle point right now. I definitely don't want to slip up and lose him. That is basically my opponent's strategy, was trying to snipe my Lord. I think my Space Pope was expecting Valkia, but still had plenty of tools for Skulltaker. He's just a lot harder to snipe, and being able to buff up blobs as Khorne, or just any melee engagement really, is just money for him. He just loves rolling around the battlefield and getting into positions where most of the other Khornate Lords might end up being a little out of place. But he's just able to affect the battlefield so positively for you by buffing everything up and still being pretty decent in combats. Even against large targets like these Ice Wolves, he can do some good work. Running over them right now. I've got my horsemen still in here with good value up to this point. 900, 700, they're going to charge in here against the Norscan Ice Wolves and try to break this position. We've got the two very reasonably healthy Ice Wolf units just getting charged down right now, and Skulltaker just lowering their stats with Bloody Onslaught, lowering that melee defense down to nothing, as well as lowering the armor, makes them incredibly susceptible to these charges. And with Khorne Gores and the Marauder Horsemen in here, they just get absolutely whopped. I mean, just dead and gone. No chance for them to get any real value there. A beautiful Searing Doom, though. Just absolutely karate chops this blob. This was one of the things I was trying to avoid earlier. It's been pretty tough to avoid the Searing Dooms. It's just such a good spell. It's the only thing my opponent has, though. I would really recommend Plague Arrest. Makes a big difference for the Marauder Horsemen with the Javelins. They can uptrade much better when they've got that available, so that their fire is a little bit more effective. Chosen Accord, I haven't gotten to highlight them much, but they've been fighting a bunch of Skin Wolves, as well as Norscan Ice Wolves in the middle here, just holding this point down while I'm cleaning up my back line. And they've gotten up to 800 value, which is pretty awesome, and yeah, they're pretty low on health, but it's still 4,000 HP. They're going to beat up on these Skin Wolves a little bit more, helping the Khorne Gores out. Searing Doom going down on the Khorne Gores. Very nice cast. Good amount of damage, but that spell resist definitely keeping me in the fight there pretty nicely. Brutes and the Hound moving up. Horsemen with throwing axes, rolling around the battlefield, doing their thing, while Skulltaker and the Khorne Gores are just finishing up what's left around here. You know, Norsca really doesn't have much left on the field. They've got some Ice Wolves back here chasing down some very tattered throwing axes, but you can see the value on the throwing axes is pretty solid. One of them did get broken off the field before it got too much extra value. It still did pretty decently. This one's got decent amount of health left. Definitely going to be very effective here at the end of the game. Just throwing against Ice Wolves or any of the rallying forces. Can also chase some stuff off if need be, but Norsca is just folding up right now. Skulltaker finds Wolfric here. He gets Slayer Sword active and just absolutely flattens the Hunter of Champions, who goes down very ignominiously. Shame upon him, his ancestors. And we just get a really good fight here. Brutes of the Hound move up. Korngors move up. Chosen are in here still. Just all the heavy metal infantry in the world. Just making a huge difference for me. Being able to hang on to these points while still having the mobility on the back end of my formation to be able to just clean up everything that was trying to overpress me and take me off the field. You can see all the Marauder Horsemen kind of like hanging out on the edge of the map. Need to unsummon them. Definitely got to make sure that you do that well. We get on top of these Skin Wolves and do shatter them. And the Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes over here, just chilling, seeing the Beasts of Tashanar. I am going to send them in, and this is looking like a really bad engagement, but you got army abilities as Khorne. So even here, Norsca not really finding much success. Beasts of Tashanar are a small target. Being infantry size, they just get absolutely slammed by the bonus and the solid combat stats of my Marauder Horsemen throwing axes here, who are very good in melee. Really good against lightly armored targets. And then they have the AP throwing axes for anything a little bit more heavy metal that they can't just rush down. Really well played by Space Pope, though. It was a solid build. I think if I had brought Valkia, she would have been in quite a bit of trouble. She wouldn't have had a lot of targets to fight. Sila's a little too tough for her with the Chaos Frost Dragon just following her around. Probably would have ended up being pretty poor, but, you know, Skulltaker is just so hard to kill, man. Like, Slayer's Sword and his immune to flanking and just solid stats and disruptive attack patterns make him very difficult to lock in place. And he can just push around and be an absolute nightmare. And, man, those Minotaurs, they were only out there for about 2 minutes, but it was the, you know, it was no two-pump chump kind of performance from them. 2,200 value on those guys. The Marauder Horsemen I started off with got great value, 1,300 and 1,000 each. And the other two horsemen just barely paying for themselves. While the Korngors came in, they were very solid. They were pretty healthy in the late game. They could have gotten some more work done. Brutes and the Hound didn't have a lot of time to work with, but the Forsaken and the Chosen was just a lot of armored infantry to get through. And my Marauders also did pretty well. A couple of them got a little bit of extra value. The other two just took a big pounding amount of damage. That, you know, was better on them than other units that were a little bit more valuable for me. So being a really good meat shield while still dishing out a little bit of damage is always nice to see. And yeah, I mean, just a really solid game for value Khorne-wise. Norskins really struggled to find value on a lot of these units. The great weapons did well. The horsemen were doing alright until they got surrounded. And really, this Marauder Champion was probably the highlight of that Norscan build. 1,200 value on it, while the Skin Wolves just struggling with all the fire damage on the field. And Chaos Dragon, similar issue with it. While Wulfric probably should just be on the horse. I mean, being on foot, he's just not going to get anywhere anytime soon. I get the idea of bringing him on foot. I still think he's better on horseback, even if Valkia is on the field. You can always do the same protection strategy with the Frost Dragon and Sila next to him, even if he's on horseback. Just having that utility of getting him around the field is really nice. Shaman Sorcerer, decent value, but really, like I said, Plague of Rust is the other part of the metal casting equation that makes a big difference. It helps your horsemen get extra value. It can help spearmen also get value. Anything just to lower the heavy armor that Khorne brings to the table, because you get extra armor on everything. It doesn't make a huge difference on the Marauders, but on the Forsaken and the Chosen especially, that extra 20 armor, I believe it is, makes a huge difference for damage mitigation, because once you're getting up to about 100 and 100 plus armor, you're talking about mitigating the majority of non-AP damage, and there's a lot of non-AP units in this build, so even though they didn't all get their value back, the Chosen were on their way. This Forsaken did get its value back and a little more. Other two not so much. They were able to just hang in so long that they really mucked up the works for Norsca's very mobile build here. I mean, a lot of very aggressive mobile units here that they just weren't able to find a lot of targets. And that really is what kind of held back the performance of this Norscan build. And not being able to snipe the Lord was kind of just the nail in the coffin. You know, you got to get one or the other, and they weren't able to really get either here. But that's going to be it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed this one, and a little bit of a post-game breakdown. And I'll see y'all on the next one. GG's. Peace, guys.